So I'll start to ask a question. How many of you know who built this room? Hands up. One person. One person out of how many are we? 50? Who owns it? Who knows? Okay, we have 6%. What about your home? Who built it? Who knows it? Maybe 10%. And who owns it? It's almost 80%. Not bad. If you own 10 buildings, you think you can influence the design of the city? Who agrees? 5%? Is 2 enough? Who agrees? Nobody. Wow. One person. If you have more power, do you think you influence the design of the cities? Who agrees? 12.5%. If yes, is that a democratic process? Nobody. All right. How can you decide upon politics, politics meaning the matters of the city polis, right? If you don't understand it. So the reason why I'm here, I didn't write that introductory text, so I'm not that arrogant, but try not to be, is because I've designed over 50 buildings in many countries, and I know a little bit of how the things work. So I'll explain it in overall how the process is, and to make one house, one building. And this is not in scale, and this is general. All right, let's start with the citizens. They're over there, and then we have the local ones and regional ones, and the users can be overlapping. Then we have the decision makers, politicians, developers, persons like me, architects and engineers. And then, developers, the people with assets, capitalists, right? And facilitators, engineers and designers, architects. So the regional people, they vote for the politicians. The developers lobby the designers, the politicians, and they allocate resources for the architects, facilitators, right? Architects, like me, they take a look at the market, what is needed, what's going to be sold, and they try to build the maximum with the minimum amount of resources. And then it goes through the urban planning department, zoning laws, to see if it goes through. All right, everything good. These people are nominated directly, most of the cases, by the politicians. And in some countries, not all, even if everything goes well, you even ask the neighbors if they agree, okay, can we build this building over there? Right? So in this scenario, we have a top-down decision-making, the zoning and regulations, and we have a bottom-up, co-design and participation. This one, the problems are corruptible and lacks detail, and this one, it's expensive and lacks oversight. But the main thing here is that allocation of resources is not under public scrutiny. And this is, of course, a relevant matter. In some studies, it says that 44% of the CO2 emissions is from the construction industry. Of course, this is the debatable matter, not just what we consume, but the whole process. And then how we evaluate the quality of architecture. We all know most of the cases, it's just based on a photo in a nice magazine, not on even the reports of the users. How do you know this building is nice? You don't even know who built it. And how the process of the decision-making was done. Was that good? How has it been working? The democratic process. Also very subjective. Just take a look at the indexes around there. You take a look at 3, they will give you 3 different results of how even the democracies are evaluated in the world. But then, okay, we are not going to escape from complexity. We all know that. Jarmo's presentation is clear, 3D city modeling. We are going to have more and more data. Who is going to make the decisions? Are we going into an automated democracy? The traffic is a good example. Nobody is almost pushing any button. It's almost just everything an algorithm based. or we can find some relevance where we still have something to say about the decision-making process, because we are indeed limited in our cognitive abilities. So how can we be relevant on that? How can we even participate in a world so complex? So this is where this architectural democracy topic comes in. So we need to find or reinvent tools where we can still be relevant and contextualize this. We have to be honest about it. We cannot just say we have a lot of data and that increases participation. We have to be honest and say we don't know. We can't cope with all that data. How can we still be relevant? Otherwise, we'll be replaced. So how does this work? What is the proposed method? In one side, I put the characteristics of architecture. This is, of course, debatable, but I'll simplify it as just the birth, the life, and death of a building. And the other side, I have the characteristics of democracy. Also debatable, of course, but it's the liberty to speak, being informed of what you speak, and being heard for what you speak. Also, we could enter a big discussion on this, but let's simplify it again. So if I crisscross this, I have questions. So what kind of design, acquisition, design, and construction of a building can improve civil rights and liberties? Or the other way around, what civil rights and liberties promotes a good construction design of a building? Not easy questions, right? But if you're putting easy questions, you get easy answers. And as we know, city is a very complex topic. So you have to still have kind of tricky, complex questions to have some kind of meaningful answers. So it goes all the way through, right? Just crisscrossing. And this side, you have the factor time. This one, you have the social context. And this year, you have the scale, because who answers these things are biased. If I answer it, it's on my own personal experience, which is different from each individual, but aggregated, we will have a collective answer. So I'll give you two examples. It's a short presentation. I cannot go into much detail, but of two works that I've been doing, which is trying to use this method. So for this question, what information access promotes a good construction design process? Who knows about this word, Disneyfication, Disneylandification? All right. So basically is you keep the facade of the buildings and you take off, destroy, demolish the inside and make it new. That's why it's called Disneyfications. It's like, it's just a facade. Everything else is false. It's like in Disneyland, right? And this is happening everywhere, many countries, because it's easier. Why? Because exactly what I showed. It's too rigid. You cannot escape this rigidity. So the same thing that was protecting us from building a skyscraper as a neighbor is also impeding us from being flexible in the regulations. It's many times too difficult to keep this structure because of fire safety, energy regulations, so many. So you just destroy it, make it new, all fine, no mold. So what did we do? This is the city of Porto, and this is the study case we started 5 years ago. And on this building here, we decided why. So how can we tackle this? If we're going to put in court every time a company does that and claim that it was a heritage site, we're going to lose all cases, or going to take forever. They just develop it. So why don't we take off the facades? So we just click it on the building and could open it up. So instead of keeping the facades, we take them off and let the people see what's inside before it gets destroyed. So we would use public pressure. How do we do this? So photogrammetry. And in this case, very low budget solution. Like with a mobile phone, we just go there. I don't know if you know about photogrammetry, but you just take one photo like this, like I'm doing there. It's just based on parallax, same as you measure the stars distance. It's like, that's why you have two eyes, by the way, not one, not three. So if you do that, you create a 3D model, and that building, that facade, you can see what's inside with your phone, right? And if you integrate that with an open city model, you can, this is a short visualization. So the level of detail is quite good. Of course, it's not the best, otherwise you would be having great cameras, not like, for example, Yarmo has shown us. But still, you have a grasp of what's inside immediately. And it's a design it yourself kind of situation. Then you can integrate this data with vectorial and 3D data. All right, so what information access can promote a good a design of a building? Well, maybe if I open up the facades and let the people expose their own data, if I am to make any change there, I might be better served with that. And as an architect, and most of architects here know, uh, we don't even visit the site, like 90% of the things we design. And we design things in 1 week when we should have been designing it for 3 months at least. And we pretend that we know about it most of the times. We are salesmen. So another one, what recycling renovation strategies and materials promotes participation? The next project I'm telling you about is the Gamified Cohousing. So how many of you have seen like this old factory and thought of yourselves, wouldn't it be great to turn it to a loft with some friends, cafe downstairs, but you still live in a shoebox. Maybe not like this one. This was a China presentation, but the good news is also bad news. Residential buildings are, at least in Europe, 20% they are empty. In China, the latest report is 24%. Still, we are building new ones every day, right? So we decided to make a company and say, we're going to turn the empty buildings into economies. So we started with this house in Hursula, like 40 minutes away from Helsinki. It used to be a school. They sold it. We bought it. And the usual problem is, why are not people living there? Yeah, many problems around that. Probably all know. And we decided, well, first thing we have to make it's minimalistic renovation, which involves a series of steps, mostly related to agile planning. So first, just easy going is don't plan everything. Or seed planning. Don't even plan it. Don't even touch. Let people take it over. The second one is you create an eternal economy. So you mix living and working space like it used to be 100 years ago, right? So now we have the possibility to reuse those things we used to do for millennia. And then, of course, the classic modular design. So it increases the span of its life, because 5 years' time it will change completely. And this room in 5 years' time, they will be renovating for sure. So I hope they didn't screw everything too tight. And then comes that gamified part, which is to make the rules of the living and working flexible. So you could use the same technologies that are sometimes making us go crazy. It could be a better solution than to have a paper on front of the door and meetings every week, because you don't want that every time. So we're developing this. Could go into detail, but I don't think it's needed, only if you have questions later. So, and I think with this, we are maybe by recycling or renovating a building, promoting participation. Okay. So one just last note on this. With all the discussion about participation, urban planning, extended reality, virtual reality stuff, IoT, smart cities, what is the question, right? What also posted in the former speakers. And the kind of, Robert Park once said, with the kind of people we want to be is the kind of cities we should be designing. So it seems to me that we are trying to design an efficient city, like with a smart city, everything, functional city, Helsinki, right? But are we efficient? I mean, everything in our body, is it efficient? We are 37 degrees in our temperature. We're losing energy all the time. We should be having, is that efficient? Not, just one example out of so many. So are we designing the city that mirrors what we want to be? or what we are? Are we capable of coping that? These are really important questions, and I think it's great to have the work of extended reality and these kind of talks to start be more active on those kind of questions, not just to assume we are on the right path, but maybe we're not. And then we should reformulate. Thank you so much.